I'm Mike Kelly from Project Healing Waters Omaha, and tonight is the session 3 of the beginner fly tying class. Tonight we'll be tying the pheasant tail nymph. This is a picture of what will be an example of what we'll be tying. The pheasant tail nymph was originally conceived in 1958 by Frank Sawyer from England. The original was tied with two materials, pheasant tail fibers and very fine copper wire. Al Troth of Montana popularized the American version with a peacock herl thorax, as you can see in this picture. Dave Hughes created a variation called the pheasant tail flashback, which added a wing case of pearl tinsel, just to give it a little bit of added attraction. So I'm going to share a quick PowerPoint here. So again, this is the pheasant tail nymph, and we'll get into the actual idea behind the hook, hook style and everything. It's normally tied in a size 8 to 22. The thread can be black or brown. For the materials, the tail is pheasant tail fibers, and the rib is copper wire. The abdomen is pheasant tail fibers wrapped around the shank of the hook, and then the copper wire wraps around those. The thorax, the front part of the fly, is the peacock herl, and then it has a wing case of pheasant tail fibers. And you can tie this with or without the legs, as it shows in this picture, that come back. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the legs that come back off of the front. So this is a nymph. It's an immature mayfly, is what it represents. And so it's tied on what is called a nymph hook. And so this gives examples of a nymph hook has heavier wire. And the reason is it's normally below the surface of the water. So you want a heavy wire hook to drop that fly down. A dry fly hook is a lighter wire because you want that to float on the surface. And a heavier wire hook would, be harder to float. So this just kind of gives examples of the hook sizes below. So again, I was talking about dry flies that float on the surface. This is an imitation of a mayfly with the wings that are up like a sailboat. And these other materials just help that fly float on the surface of the surface film of the water, and not let that hook sink below. So a lot of times trout are looking at these insects that are floating on top of the water, and they come up to the surface and eat them. But there are certain times of the year where they're not hatching, and they're not on the surface. So that's when the nymphs are plentiful below the surface. And so that's what we're representing tonight. And this is a picture of a pheasant tail nymph, actually. So it's a juvenile life stage of aquatic insects. Just to kind of give a comparison of the differences. With a dry fly, again, like I said, you've got a light wire hook. A wet fly or a nymph has a heavy wire hook. The hackle on a dry fly is stiff, so it can stand the fly up on the surface film. A wet fly has soft webby hackle, and that allows it to absorb water and sink below the surface. The thread normally on a dry fly is as light as possible. There's a small head. You don't really want to wrap a lot of thread onto a hook when you're tying a dry fly. On a wet fly, you can use a heavier thread, make a larger head. You can make more thread wraps because you want it to actually sink. The tail on a dry fly is stiff and sparse. And if you look down at this picture below, um, that tail actually helps support that hook and make sure that that bend doesn't fall below the surface. The bend of the hook will fall below the surface, but that tail will actually support it on the surface film. Where a wet fly, you have thicker, webbier fibers that come off of there that are softer, and they'll actually absorb water and allow that fly to sink. On a dry fly, your body material is water resistant. It's really tightly packed. Sometimes you use foam to help float it. On a wet fly, it's soft, buggy. Uh, there's a lot of little fibers hanging off of it, and it's absorbent of water, so that'll help it sink. And then again, the wings on a dry fly are normally upright, depending on the species of insect that you're trying to represent. And on a wet fly, the wings are normally swept back. Um, these are the main insects that fly fishermen try to represent. And the one we're actually focusing on tonight is the larval stage, if you will, the uh, of the mayfly. And this is a picture of an adult mayfly with the wings up like a sailboat. It has tails that hang off of the back that are really long, and then the legs, of course, help it ride on the surface film. This is a caddis fly and a stone fly, which is really big and ugly. And this is a midge, which is very similar to a mosquito. They're all important parts of a trout's diet. So again, this shows the actual insect and the fly that represents it. So this is a pheasant tail nymph right here on the lower uh, left. And on the upper left is the actual insect. And you can see there's some little, these are actually like gills, help the insect breathe in the water and absorb oxygen. And you can see that the pheasant tail fibers, as they're wrapped around the hook shank, they actually have those little fibers that hang out. So that helps uh, give a good representation of that. If tonight we're doing the very basic pheasant tail, we won't do the legs, but if you were to put legs in there, that would represent these 6 legs that hang out of the side. And then the tail fibers, normally on a pheasant tail nymph, you use about maybe 5 to 6 fibers. The actual insect has 2 to 3 tails that hang out the back. And that's the end of all of that. So I'll stop sharing that. And again, this is our kind of a roadmap. This is where we're going. I'm going to switch to the materials and put a little light on the subject. So for this fly, we're going to use, you can use black or brown thread. Actually, you could use any color thread if you have it, but I'm going to use black in this case. The tail and most of the body is made up of pheasant tail, and these are kind of familiar to a lot of us. If you look at this particular feather, you can see as you kind of spread these fibers off to the sides that this feather actually has about the same length on the left and the right of these. They're called barbules that hang off of here. But as you get away from, this is probably like a center tail feather because they're equally spread apart. As you get off to the sides of the pheasant, you might have, these are longer and these are a little bit shorter. So this is probably toward, I guess from the back of the bird, it would be toward that other side. So this would be a center, and this might be the next feather over for the tail. You can see that. I'm looking in a different direction than the camera. So then this is one that's way off to the side. You can see that this is just kind of mottled and soft. And this is way off to the very side where these right here, you can see I've used these up this side of the feather. These actually have the good markings. They have the good little barbs hanging off of them. But this side of the feather is not very useful for this type of a fly. So that just kind of shows you how the feathers might actually look on a pheasant. Like this would be the center tail feather, and then this might be the next one, and this would be way down further on. So anyway, we're going to use some of these fibers for the fly. I'll move those over toward the vise. And then for the thorax of the fly, the front part that's a little bit more, it's thicker. We're going to use peacock herl, which we're all familiar with the peacock eye. You can take the herl, it's called a herl, off the side of the eye here, or you can use, this is strung peacock herl. And this, as they market these eyes, they'll put these into a package with the prime feathers, herls that are hanging off the sides, and all the ones that they strip out from the, I mean, these things are really long, 3 or 4 feet long. They'll strip all those lower ones off and they'll string them together and sell them like this. And you can use either of these for this because it's just wrapped around the hook, and it's not critical that it looks really pretty. And then, of course, for the rib of the fly is going to be copper wire. The size of hook I'm actually tying on tonight is a size 12, so it can be seen easily in the camera. And for that, I'm using a brassy size, it's called, of copper wire. You can use any copper wire. It's not so much, it gives a little bit of flash, as you'll see, but the main purpose of the copper wire is to strengthen the fly, because these little barbules that hang off the side of the feather, that's what we use to wrap around the body. If a fish's tooth was to come across that, it would break it, and then that would start to come unraveled. The rib of the fly is normally intended to tie those materials down in an opposite direction to help hold them onto the fly and make it useful for more than one fly. So I'll switch back to the vise camera and bring my light over. So first thing we want to do is mount the hook. So I have mine in a little clip here. So you want to take that hook, grab it by the lower portion of the bend, and just make it so that the shank is parallel with your surface. To start the thread, I'm going to start about an eye length back from the eye with my thread. And then, if you guys will do this with me, basically what I'm doing to trap that thread down is I'm crossing it over at about an eye length back, and then I'm wrapping back. It slipped a little bit. Wrap back across that thread, so you're trapping it down. And then I'm holding this tight with my hand. Let me zoom out some. I'm holding this tag end of the thread tight with my hand, so that as you wrap forward, that forces all of those threads to go tightly to the next one in front of it. So I can go way down the shank here with touching wraps, and then I can go ahead and cut that off. So if everybody's at the point where their thread is secured, Just let me know,
Just a
John, if
second, Mike.
everybody's
We got
ready.
one more to catch up, and we'll be right there.
Okay, just let me know. While we're getting to that point, I'm going to cover a couple of things about, couple more things about this pheasant tail. So here's one. Ideally, when you just, especially if you buy them online, you don't really know what you're going to get for length. You can tell right there that these are kind of damaged on the end. So I can just kind of strip those away. But I always like to work from the bottom of the feather and work up. If you come up here and say,
pardon me? Just a second. Got Jesse's still on his thread.
Okay. And you really don't have to start at the eye of the hook. You can start in the middle if you want. I like to, the way I teach things is to be consistent every time so that you have the same, I'm not very focused there. So that you have the same base of everything, you have the same proportions. But if you want to start the thread, if it's easier to start the thread in the middle, that's fine. It's not going to really cause a problem in this particular fly. Welcome, Paul Fidelis. Good to see you. And Roger, I see you came in later. And Dave Jacobs. Dave Jacobs, if you can hang around till the end, I have something to show you. Some flesh flies for Alaska. Are we good?
Yeah, Jesse broke his string again. Man Mountain Mike down here.
So
we're good. Go for it.
There's a couple things with breaking your thread. So on this bobbin that I have right here, let me zoom out even further here. You can take these arms of the bobbin and spread them out, actually bend them out. This is real strong spring steel. So you can bend them outwards and make it looser. So right now, if, I can pull on this pretty easily and pull that thread away. So if I'm just pulling straight back like that, it's not going to break the thread because I have it loose enough. If I want to go really tight, I can grab with my palm of my hand and tighten around that spool, and I can go super tight to where I can break my thread. But if you get used to holding your bobbin right here, that might help you to prevent from breaking it. If you really want to put a lot of pressure on it, you can grab that spool with your palm of your hand and put more pressure on it. So hopefully that'll help. I wanted to focus on the pheasant tail. Like I said, when you buy them online, you really don't know what you're going to get. You might get a center tail feather, or you might get one that's off to one side or the other. But what you really want on a fly like this, for the tail, you're only using about maybe the tail of a pheasant tail nymph is normally about a hook gap in length. So if I'll zoom in some. If you look at the gap of the hook right here, this is an easy way to show it. So the gap of the hook right there is about how long you want the tail to be. So you don't want to use your premium, real long pheasant tail fibers. I have a tip right here that this is actually the tip of the feather that's broken off. You can use these shorter ones for the tail. They might not be able to wrap a whole body, and they might not have very fuzzy little micro barbs on the sides. But for the tail fibers, you can use some of these and not worry about and not use up your real nice pheasant tail for the tail fibers. So basically, I'll do that again purposefully here. Doesn't matter which side you take it off of, really, because again, all you're really looking for is about, maybe a quarter to a half an inch at the most, depending on the size of the hook. I just stand these out from the 90 degrees from the stem, right? And that makes all the tips even. So then I'll take that and just pull the stem away like that. And that keeps them all aligned. You can tell by the butts right here that they're all aligned, so you know the tips are going to be aligned. So you just kind of estimate about.
Hey, just a second, Mike.
Go ahead.
We're still at trying to figure out the feather. Okay.
If all you have is the shorter sections of the main feather, go ahead and use it. If you have the opportunity to use like
full feather, okay, not the barbs. Hang on, I'll pull the feather away. Start with the top. There you go. Now you see what that gives you? Right. Little things down there. Did you get it, Jesse?
I did.
Okay.
Just like you told me.
Okay. Good.
It doesn't
Right.
make a lot of difference, but if you get in the habit of pulling the stem away from these barbules, once you spread them out 90 degrees, as a rule, generally those will stay pretty well aligned. There's different feather types that are a little bit more critical than pheasant tail, but so I want to just kind of take that and just hang it out past the bend of the hook, about a hook shank in length.
No, we're using the tip. We're using that.
And then holding that tight with my finger and thumb, I'm going to wrap a thread over it and then start working my way back a little bit.
There's a length that's about the same as that right there. So
there's my tail.
On top of the hook. Just like
Where
that.
you want your tie-in point to be.
Hold this up on top of the hook.
Let me move this hook a little bit so you can see.
I know.
Okay.
I just need this.
Yep, there you go. Now slide. Oh, there you go. Move it forward a little bit. So you're a little bit long. Right there.
When you hang your thread, let your thread hang straight down. It should be right at the barb of the hook. That tells you where the flat part of the shank is. That's where you want to tie all your materials so they don't point down.
Yeah,
on the bend.
With your left hand, right? Hold the feathers.
So when you let your thread hang, it should be right there at the barb of the hook.
Try to keep that thread short and watch out for the point.
Part way back up.
There you go.
Follow
There you go.
mine. You usually go by
There
the
you go.
back up.
That's it.
To keep your body tapered.
That's it. Keep moving your thread toward the front.
Okay.
And they don't have to be touching wraps. They can be loose
Oh,
wraps.
okay.
Okay.
Now it's wrapping back
Yep.
down.
Now, bring your thread back to here.
Yeah. Back to here?
Yep, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, bring your thread right back to where you started.
Oh, so I go back?
Yep.
All right. Without,
Without cutting it.
all right.
Go back a little bit further. Right there. Oh, there, right there. That's it. Okay. All right, we all got the tail
right.
ready to go? All right.
And then go ahead and cut that off.
You don't have, well, yeah, you can cut off. Yeah, okay.
So the reason I'm doing that is sometimes, especially with these longer
And
pearls
short.
like this, you can
Where am I coming?
sometimes you can get by with
Yeah.
using these
Come
longer
in-
ones.
Come in from over here. No,
Over here?
Yep.
Okay,
now cut it off.
right there.
Close to the hook. Come down, 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 down. There, right there. Bang. See how nice and close that is?
Yep.
Okay.
Right. Sometimes you can use these longer ones to tie in the tail and then use the rest of that feather to wrap forward. But it's always a gamble because sometimes you may not have enough feather length to be able to make that happen. So especially as you're beginning, it's better to go ahead and wrap forward and tie those butts down. Just kind of
Which
using
is
medium
already done.
tightness
Yeah, okay.
and just tie those down.
Okay, Jesse, hold on a minute, Mike.
You want me to go over it again?
No, I want you to bring your thread. I know what he's gonna do now. Bring your thread back forward to here.
Okay.
Don't bring it all the way back forward up here. We need to tie in the wire now, and we're gonna tie it in from the front of the hook to the back.
Okay, so
And we do that, yeah, we do it from the front to the back, and Michael say this. That gives us a lot of strength holding that wire in place, because the wire is pretty slippery and we don't want it to slip out when we start wrapping it, so. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
So I'm gonna do a side by side so I can see you guys a little better. And so now I'm gonna take the wire. Normally with this fly tying wire that you buy, this is UTC brassy size copper wire. I took off about maybe 3-4 inches. And even with this kind of thicker wire, it's got this, let me zoom out some here. Got this little plug in the end that holds the wire in place so it doesn't come unraveled. So if you hook it underneath there, I've got about 4 inches hanging out from this. And then just grab with your fingers and just break it. It's brittle enough to where it, you're not Superman or anything. You can,
Unless you
like
got
that if
something
you
that's
want to.
already cut it off for you. So.
but it's brittle, so it'll break off. And then from where your thread is hanging, just a little ways back from the eye, you can just tie this down. And I like to set it on the top of the hook shank. And then as I make my wraps around, it kind of brings it around to the far side away from me.
Yes. The
I don't know if you
thread,
can
to
see
it,
that.
as you're
Right?
wrapping, the thread, the tension on the thread will actually cause that wire to go around to the opposite side of the hook, which is
Right.
where you want it.
You want the thread to be on the opposite side of the hook. Like that.
And that's important because when you get ready to wrap the wire around your body material, you don't want it to get hung up on your tail.
So
So if you got
I'll
it
show you
on
what
the
can
side-
happen. I'll show you what can happen if I'll wrap it the opposite
this.
way. And you can see that the tail is getting pulled down because of that wire,
To the tail.
right? I don't want that to happen. So I'm putting it on the far side. So when I come around in the normal wrapping, normally we wrap from underneath over the top like this. So as I wrap that forward, it's not going to grab that tail. When I wrapped it the opposite way, the wrong way, I come back forward here. When I go back to my tail like that, that's where I want it to start. If I come this way, it's going to start bending the tail down. But if I go the opposite way, the normal way, it's not going to bend the tail down at all. So we want that wire to be on the opposite side away from you. Like that. Let me know when
Okay.
you're there.
You can put your wire right in there, Chelsea. That's a material part, so.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Did you get her?
Yeah, I got it. It's on the other side.
Okay.
But he brought his string to the middle. Is that what I'm supposed to?
You're gonna tie, where are you gonna tie into, Mike? You gonna tie
Okay.
about?
So I just naturally did that just on my own without telling you guys why I did it. Bring it back to about the hook point, because now we're going to tie down the next material. And you want to bring it back to the point of the hook as it's hanging down.
Yep.
Because next thing we're going to do is tie down this pheasant tail.
About.
Approximately.
Yeah.
I got long enough stuff here, I hope.
Don't be like Billy, get out the micrometer now and start measuring
Yeah.
how far you've got the.
Yeah.
the
Don't use a micrometer, Bill. So you want to take some nice long pheasant tail fibers. Again, I like to work from the bottom of the feather up. It just keeps it,
That's a problem.
it's my part of my OCD, but it also keeps it neat and it doesn't waste material. If you
Yes.
start grabbing it from different places in here, then you end up wasting a feather. Just grab a few
But you want the long
fibers. I
stick.
would grab about 5,
Well, probably not
wrap
right
the
about-
body.
And you want about, yeah, about that much right there, maybe a
Take
little bit more.
about 5.
Watch what Mike's doing. See what he's got right there?
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for, about that much.
Okay,
Yeah.
so. well, like
That one right there, yeah.
And
So
then,
don't do that.
and then I pulled the feather,
well,
the
that's right.
racus of the feather, I pulled it away
Put out my straight, I'll grab
from
that.
the barb. So we have
That's
all
great.
this fuzzy stuff hanging off the
Pull the
back.
feather away. There you go.
Okay,
Always pull the feather away from the barbels, okay? Otherwise you wind up getting the tips unlined, misaligned.
The tips are uneven a lot of times.
Yeah,
If you
thank you.
pull, if you
That's
pull
what I'm
this
looking
away
for.
from the feather, you're more likely to pull those out of alignment. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but it's a good habit to get into. And then
Now, you
just,
clip off those butt ends.
you want to cut those little curly things off because those will catch your thread and cause trouble.
I didn't need any help doing that.
No.
So you can tell I've got, all these tips are aligned now.
This thing.
I've got about 5 or 6 feathers. So I'm turning this around actually because I want to tie the tips down. So if you have to turn it around, you can just kind of grab it in your fingers like this
Okay,
And I'll grab it.
so they
down
stay
here.
aligned. If they get out of alignment, it's not that
See where
critical.
Mike's got it?
Yes,
See it? See how little? Watch what he does.
Yeah, do the
But-
tricky.
What you want to do is just take those fibers. Now I'm putting them towards me, right, on my side of the hook, so that when I wrap forward, it catches them, right?
Short.
And then I want to just
Grip.
pull it a little bit to where those tips,
You don't have as many feather barbels sticking out,
okay,
okay?
where those tips come back and I can
Leave out
tie them down. Now I want to go
now.
kind of tight here. I don't want to break the thread, Jesse.
ah,
There you go.
and then.
Just wrap those down and then come back forward.
Going
Right
forward,
now, you can go forward now. Yeah, now you can go backward.
backward,
Yeah, now you can go backward.
Come back toward,
All the way back to where you tied the tail in.
okay,
just to keep your thread out of the way. You want to just come toward the front of the hook like that.
When I tell you.
No, you
I
want it
want
front.
I want it to be on my side of the hook, right?
Yeah, you want your tips going to it. You gotta turn around.
Okay. So, once we have the pheasant tail fibers tied in, when it's a material like pheasant tail fibers, it's kind of delicate. It's a good idea to wrap them towards you in the opposite direction you normally would. So I'm wrapping towards me and around the, underneath the hook. And then, you don't really need to twist it because that kind of takes away from those little micro, if I can zoom in, you can see those little hairs that kind of hang off of that.
One of the things that you can do if you're having troubles,
Just wrap them forward, and as your feathers start getting close, smaller, you can grab it with your finger like this and hold it so it doesn't come unraveled.
the thing you can
So
do.
when you're
And then
wrapping
push
like
it underneath.
ready for you.
It can be,
Like this.
you know, when you're creating something original, like I've got something I
You
call
wanna
the-
Take this as far forward as you can.
which is, you
Come
know,
on.
ribbon, you know, that comes in very fine things. I use some marabou feather,
Even-
John, marabou, right? On
Yeah,
Even toward the front of the hook.
Mom's beautiful mink coat, right? And to make duck.
oh, that's much easier.
See that? Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's sitting there and, you know.
And then just start taking some wraps over it and
That's
hold it in
now,
place.
Get
this
right
is
up to
trying
front
to
of the
create
book.
something original, right? I'm putting bead head in it, I'm
Yeah.
putting some peacock
Yeah,
sword in
okay.
it, I'm sure something with peacock sword in it.
Okay, tie it
And
up.
so what you do is like Al and
So,
others,
do I
they can give
No,
their wisdom
just grab your-
freely,
grab your
right?
thread,
Mike
that's it.
Kelly,
And come
everybody
behind
that's,
the hackle
Paul
pliers.
Fidelis is a
Okay.
highly accomplished
Yeah.
flight.
Back.
Behind the
And
hackle
along with
pliers.
John.
Now up
And
and
so
over,
what they do
Up and
is
over.
they give you
Behind.
these tips, these
up and
tools, right?
over,
And so
There.
you're learning a
Okay.
nugget out of
and
every.
now you can
class, right?
let
So
go of the
I
hackle
have
pliers.
notebooks, right? But then you also got notebooks
Pull
of
these
things
up
I want.
straight,
And
slip, cut them off.
Flight training people, we're kind of like material hoarders. Oh, I see this cool material, I wanna go buy it. So like
You
this
can
year,
cut those off if you want.
what can you do
Huh?
with what you have on hand? So that was
You
like.
can go ahead and cut those butts off.
Immediately
Yeah.
available.
Even though I'm quite a bit forward of where I want to be,
Cause my kitchen table.
now I'm
is
gonna take this
like,
copper
nah,
wire
you gotta
and wrap
find
it in the
another-
normal direction. And then what that's gonna do is actually cross. If you can see, it actually crosses those pheasant tail
Yeah.
fibers.
What I'm
Start
doing is
wrapping it
I'm
this
using
way.
My fingers to help.
And you
hold
see
the
how that
wires
leaves that tail
and
perfect?
push them
Yeah,
across.
this-
It brings it- there
It
you
doesn't
go.
mess with the tail,
You can use
There you go.
to-
crosses across those pheasant tail
Uh,
fibers.
and stuff like
Equally
that.
spaced
Or you
spirals,
got like
like a barber pole.
Try to
Okay.
get equally spaced if you can. If not, the fish aren't gonna say, I'm not gonna eat that bug because the segments aren't equal.
and that interaction.
But once you get that wrap forward, then just
You should
start
have,
wrapping your
okay,
thread.
the Wire got it for you, so now you.
Well, oops, I missed here.
Go ahead.
Notice
I flies when I was a kid.
I took about 3 or 4 extra wraps right here, tight around the hook shank.
I was in one of the.
What that lets me do is let go of that wire so I don't need to hold on to it. And then I can just kind of wrap across it
And that
Come
November.
over here.
like that
I
and
saw
just tie it down.
Right, no.
I just hooked myself.
And, cause I kind of did it when I was a kid, and I thought I had too many physical impediments.
Yeah, about
I did
3
it
wraps.
Too much,
And
right?
then you can finish wrapping this, and do the same thing with it, cut all the excess off, okay?
Okay. And so, and then.
Did you go back forward? Or?
I'm in the kitchen.
Oh,
and
no, I
John
was-
calls,
I-
Go ahead and tie
And you,
it.
and you.
Once I have all that tied down,
Yes.
you can,
Well,
you
no, I
can
was
take that
going back.
wire,
No, keep the thread full.
This is,
Keep the
you know,
thread through.
before
Okay.
No,
COVID
keep-
shut
take that
down.
wire, they call it helicoptering,
That's a good place to stop, right there.
Okay.
Okay?
and you can
now-
just
90s.
twist it around until it breaks.
He helicopters it off,
We got a lake cottage, it was in the family van.
oh,
everything.
get lower, get way down close.
No, that unwrapped it.
Fishing was.
Oh, okay, so wrap it,
me and
wrap
my
it,
wife,
bring your thread
you know,
and wrap it up
everything
forward.
else. And so I just.
This
put
way?
fishing.
Yep, toward the
And
eye of the
so
hook,
They got me to go fishing again. And so here I'm sitting out on the dock.
there.
I'm
Now I'll go
spin
back,
casting for the first
couple of
time
wraps
in
backwards that
2019.
This way?
And I'm like,
Okay.
oh.
And
my
now
wrist
you can
still
spiral
works
that,
'cause I broke my wrist.
that
I'm
wire
like,
off.
I'd never be able to fish again. I should have.
Okay, grab it up close, there you go. It's slippery.
If you have trouble helicoptering the wire, make sure you have your thread tight.
When you cut the wire, cut it way back down in here.
More fish. I released them all.
Get as close to the hook as
And
you
I'm
can.
like, now I know why
There you go.
dad sat out on the dock after a hard day's work in the hospital. Cause it's peaceful, it's quiet, you're on the lake,
Okay.
you're listening to the birds, you're hearing the climb of the halyard, you know, the neighbors, sailboat and stuff like that.
Bill is talking here, so we can't see how he's doing or not.
All right.
So I got one feather that's kind of wrapped around, so I'm gonna be a little short, so I'm gonna do a
Now-
pinch wrap, and grab it.
He hasn't got his wire wrapped yet.
I want my
Mike.
tail to be about 2/3,
Okay, I'm back.
about 1/2 to 2/3. If you look at the hook shank, it's from here, from the eye back to where it starts to bend around, right? I want
Wraps.
the back part of the hook. You can see where I have 4 wraps of the gold or the copper wire. I want about this much to be thorax and this much to be the abdomen, right?
Your thorax is gonna be right about where your thread is
So-
now.
Okay.
I'm going to take my thread and put it about
In this case.
a little bit forward of the halfway point of that hook.
Hook here, he's about halfway between the hook and the eye.
Magnifying
Okay,
glasses.
So reposition your thread, but you're about halfway between the point of the hook and the eye.
And that's why I look at what I'm doing, right? 'Cause,
Yep.
You know, get
There.
up close and you want to
Now,
see.
that's where we're gonna go next.
Okay.
Right.
Interesting things that we-
So now I want to go back to my pheasant tail. And I want to get the materials for the cover over the top of the thorax. It's called the wing case. So I'm going to take, right now I've got about maybe nine or five
Right about there.
fibers. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull the rachis away from the barbules and then cut off those curly ends.
In this case, it's better to grab too many fibers than too few.
Yeah.
Because I can
Right.
always get rid of them.
Yeah.
Okay, now what you want to do is you can align these feathers now. See what happened is when you pulled it off, see how they're not aligned?
Mhm.
But what you can do is kind of like this, and it's not going to be that big a deal anyhow, because we're going to wrap this
Right.
over the
And
top.
the key is, you're going to tie it in using the back
Yeah,
end right
right.
here.
Yeah.
So if they're
Go ahead.
not aligned, it's not critical.
No,
If they're not aligned, just go ahead and cut the butts like that and make sure those are aligned. Because we're going to actually start the wing case back here at this end, not the tip end, because we want the real thick stuff to wrap over the top. So I'm going to take these butts and just kind of pinch them together into a clump and holding them a little bit towards me. So like this is on top, I'm going to lean them a little bit towards me and then start wrapping my thread. And as I wrap that thread, it pulls them on top of the hook.
thread
That's where I
torque.
want that to be. I want it to be on top of the hook
So it's.
so that
towards
when
the-
I wrap it forward, it's going to come over the top.
Start wrapping, and the thread will, because as it gets
And if you
tighter,
make a mistake on a fly.
see how it brings it right around to the top?
Yeah.
Like, like your
Okay,
fly.
that's it.
You
That's
take
it?
You only need
your
3
blade,
wraps to hold it.
Okay.
For
One
now.
of the most expensive things you buy is your.
And it doesn't matter how many wraps you do here in the front, because this is all going to be covered with peacock herl and all kinds of other stuff. You just want to make sure that on top of your hook shank, you've got
Right, concentrating on failures or issues.
those pheasant tail fibers are on top of the hook shank like that.
And so
Back.
If you want to bend them
Once.
forward,
Okay.
You're trying to
bend them
cover-
forward and look to make sure that you don't have any
Then
space
go
in
back
there.
to where you started tying in the wing case. So now we're gonna tie in the pheasant or the peacock.
Right there.
Kicked out of
Yep.
the house and since
Okay.
military.
Oh,
See how when I bend it forward, I've got body with the copper wire wrapped, and then it goes right to the
So you're. kind
wing
of-
case.
Want to have the body, the fibers in the body and the copper wrap. What you don't want to see is,
And what you.
thread.
Okay.
Like a space or anything like that.
yeah, so you're
So
good.
now, once everybody's there, let me know.
That's gonna become a.
Emil, you there?
Yeah. Get to do different things.
I know Bill isn't there yet.
Okay,
Just a second.
Sorry, I keep distracted.
That's all right. No, that's okay.
no,
That's what
that's
you're.
fine.
Yeah.
You have a job to do too.
My job is to run around the table and keep everybody straight.
Right.
Well, you're the skinniest one here.
Yeah, right. By the time I get home at night, I'm ready to go to bed.
Now, see, he moved it back to the middle.
Yeah, right where you tied it in the first place. When
Right.
you first started tying it
So,
in.
that's where I tied down, these, fibers,
You gotta
right
take
in the
your
middle,
thread
pretty
back
much.
in.
Okay.
Okay.
So when I look from the top, I turn my vise around and
Yeah,
look from the
That's
top. I can
Now-
bend that
good. This-
forward and it
next,
all,
Exact
Mike
same.
has what's called a rotary device, so you can, this is partially rotary.
Like this right here.
Okay, which I,
This is a Dan vise and it's one of the first rotaries.
and you know, their families.
so John, do you have, strung peacock herl or do you have eyes?
We got both, Mike, tonight.
Okay.
Okay, not-
With
because
the
I'm-
eyes, just like the pheasant tail fibers, if you look at this one on the
Just doing this
left
one-
side, as I'm looking at the eye, you can see that those micro barbs are kind of shorter. And if you pull these out on the right, they're longer. So again, this is probably from one side or the other of that peacock's tail.
Now, change your own.
So depending on the size of the hook,
So,
you might want to use the longer ones for larger hooks and
Yes,
the
it's a strong
shorter
feedback.
ones
Not a
for,
whole lot of difference between
5 minutes.
Okay.
Oh.
look the same, so.
Stop.
The
if you're
difference-
using,
You get each
if you're
other.
using the
I-
strong peacock curl,
Cool.
Fibers.
Okay.
That
With
Yeah, a lot of them
strong-
are broken, so.
Yeah.
I know what
With
you
the
do.
strong-
if
we
you're
don't
using
have
strong,
little-
just grab a few fibers or one.
Stare at you
To
too.
be grabbed about that
And
big.
the first thing you want to do is
Cut off this stuff
take
down
the
here.
first, take the top inch and just break it off,
Which little event?
because that's always brittle.
Dr. Lisa Miller
Just break that away,
about that,
and then
how nature can be.
tie it down
That we're actually tied to nature. We're really part of something.
and come forward.
You would tie it into.
Your thing lagged, Mike.
What's that?
The monitor lagged.
Cut that part.
Sorry.
Well, even if it's jumpy, I want to take this peacock curl then and wrap it forward.
It's pressing.
Yeah, he's got screen freeze.
It's still jumpy.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. It looks like you've got, a bandwidth. Ah, there we go. There we go. We're back normal.
Okay.
Cool.
When I get toward the eye of the hook, I want to stop about an eye length back and then fold that peacock curl back. And if you look at where my thread is, it's an eye length back. If I look at the eye right there, it's an eye length back.
And a common thing that happens
Yes.
is,
I would put a
It's
couple more
crowd
wraps
rock.
backwards,
and then all of a sudden you've got.
back in this area here. Yeah, you want that.
The key is right now to make sure that your thread is back from the eye enough to be able to tie down this wing case, and not, crowd the eye, cover it up.
You want it back to about.
Because.
So if you're not sure, just come back, another wrap and just make sure
Yeah,
that
you
you,
want it
you're
back
back
about
there
a
a ways.
16th of an inch with a high.
And so.
You wanna build a little
might
head
not
there.
Find me fishing at a fishing event, but what am I doing?
We're ready, Mike.
Okay,
So I do a lot of.
All right.
different-
then I'll kind of turn this to where I'm looking at it from above.
One
Just
of our
take that, you don't have to do that, just fold it over the top. So you're taking that pheasant tail and folding it over the top,
Participate and be. Zoom
and then pinch it,
With us,
or hold it down with your thumb like that,
you can get, the hook off the fish.
and then take your thread.
in practice.
Again, it's not a bad idea to, when you take that wing case and fold it forward,
I get a blizzard.
to come a little bit towards you on the eye there. If you look at it, how I'm doing that, I'm kind of coming a little bit towards me.
Would have done that, Mike.
So when you wrap your thread forward, that thread torque will take that around and put it right on top.
Are you threading towards the eyeball or the eye?
Yeah, I want to take, I'm still back from the eye. If you look at this, I'm still quite a ways back from the eye, but I'm
Mike,
taking a
I'm gonna
wrap.
Step outside for a minute. I'll be right back.
Okay, taking a
You
wrap
got it,
over the
Fred.
top, just to hold that wing case down and still have room. I want to take about probably 3 or 4 wraps over the top of that.
That looks like this.
Okay, just to make sure. And then I'll come back and take a couple wraps right in front, just to make a little bit of a head right there. And now they're pointing kind of straight up. Now I should be able to cut those, and they won't come unraveled. So now I can just take my thread, wrap it over the top. And if you have a few of those little butt ends sticking up, that's okay. If you want to be perfect and make it good enough for Instagram, you can really, cover that up good. Let me, whoop,
Now, I'm gonna leave my rooster tail on there still. Looking for the.
hang on a
phone.
second. Have we got it? There we go.
Green screen back, yeah. You could have taken this.
Then, once you have that cut off, it's time to do a whip finish. Is anybody having trouble with a whip finish?
I am.
I can show you how to do it.
Okay.
I'm gonna watch this.
All right. So let me zoom out a little bit more. All right.
All right.
You hold it like.
To me, this tool is a little bit hard to understand, but it's a lot harder to do it by hand. For me, I've never been able to master that. So the first thing you want to do is grab it. If you have this kind of a whip finish tool,
Yep.
grab it up here so it doesn't bend. It doesn't spin, right? You're actually pinching it past the bead so it doesn't spin.
Okay.
Lay it on the thread.
You create yourself. I'll call it.
So now that front hook is actually hooked around the thread.
Okay.
You just gotta stop it from pivoting. for just
Then you
like
bring your thread forward to where it wraps around that little bend at the bottom,
that. Do like this.
and then bring it up to where your thread was at the front. So see where I'm right there, where my thread started.
So,
Yeah.
Then you start to let it turn and you have a little triangle.
On the inside, right?
So far, so good.
All right. Now take that triangle, just kind of work your thread back toward the back of the fly.
Catch it on
And
that
then
hook,
you got a little triangle there. You can just wrap
and bring it bottom
back
straight
to front
up,
like
straight
this.
up.
As long as you get 3 good wraps, you're good to go.
I didn't get one wrap, it all came undone.
All right, I'll do it again. Lay it down on the thread so that that hook is hooked. Wrap it around the front
Okay.
and
the
then
hook
you
is
make a
hooked.
triangle.
Oh, got
When you
the
make
back.
the triangle, start to get that thread back toward the back of the fly. So right now I have the thread, it's like a 4 if you look from the side there. I
Okay.
have this
So
little triangle.
And I let it roll. I bring my fingers.
Then just
back.
is your
roll it.
thread? Oh,
I got a 4. See how I'm going around?
My thread's in the back.
your thread's in the back.
Like
Yep.
this, yeah.
My thread's in the back because I started down like this. Okay, I'll do it again.
Sorry, I just,
That's fine. Hook the hook right there
okay, I've got that.
and then bring it around that bend.
Okay, got
Then
that.
start to let your tool turn.
Okay.
Okay. And when it does that, I just kind of set my thumb on the back of the fly right here.
All right.
All right. So now when you start to bring it forward and actually let it start spinning,
You're
I'm away from the bead now. I'm letting it start to spin. Now I can spin that triangle around.
Pull your finger down, move your finger down a little bit and let it.
As long as you
roll.
make 2 or 3 wraps like that, then
There
you
you
can
go.
let go. See, I'm tight still on the hook, but I can
100%.
pull this back end out
You need a little bit more.
and then
room.
pull it forward.
Now, bring yourself, hold yourself like this. Okay, we'll be straight out. Now, bring your bottom straight up.
Start to let it
Yeah,
spin.
well, I'll do
Underneath.
it. Yeah, underneath. Okay, we're there. Hold it straight up. I
I'll be
got
right
you.
back.
Okay,
Anybody else need pointers?
I'll be right with you.
Are we still struggling with the whip finish?
Yeah, I broke the string.
Okay,
All right.
You know, see how the
Okay.
line went?
If you
under?
break the string, if you've had enough wraps, you should be able to save it.
3.
You can
Yeah.
do. And
Pull
let
it
me,
down, listen,
let me,
I'm hooked up.
let me do this on the camera so you can see it.
Okay, finish. It's just not gorgeous, right? So what you're doing is you're.
I'm gonna break my thread here,
I think you're.
show you how to recover. I've tied a fly here. And when I was doing the whip finish up here, I broke my thread. I'm gonna bend the hook, but broke my thread. All right.
Okay.
One thing you can do to kind of make that survive is grab that thread real quick and put a hackle pliers on there and let that hackle pliers hang down
You get a quick jam knot.
and put some weight on it. So then you know your fly isn't going to unravel,
Okay.
You get it.
right? Then you can come back with your thread and just kind of try to wrap over that.
Sorry.
And then you can cut your butt end of your thread and that away. And you've survived. Then you can go back to your whip finish tool,
All right, where's the, I didn't.
lay the hook down to where it grabs the thread.
See how,
So I'm hooked down.
I'm about a hook shank away from the hook. All right.
Okay,
My hook's on there, and then I wrap. Right now, I'm gonna really zoom out here if I can.
the problem that I keep running into is when I can get the A, but when I go to flip it over the top, it just comes undone.
Okay. So go a little ways back from the eye.
Okay,
So if you're right at the eye, you want to go like an eye length back to
Okay.
start with. All right.
Yep.
And then I've got my bobbin pulled quite a ways out. I'm just really holding the thread. Because that's
Okay.
kind of an easier way to look at it.
you
I
want to use.
Lay the hook down about a hook shank away and then wrap it around
See, that's
that
the part
band.
every time I,
Okay.
okay,
So now I bring it back to the hook and I just kind of rest my thumb on the hook. And then as I bring that back around, I keep it on the side toward me. This thread is on the side toward me. And then I just start wrapping over the top with that triangle.
right.
okay,
I am 90 to the hook.
And then make wraps toward the eye of the hook
I'm looking for that 90 degree.
and pull it off.
Kind of looks
Okay.
like 4.
Right.
And
Oh.
when I'm able to just. Yeah,
Did you do one?
Okay.
huh?
Did you do one or did it come off?
Well, I actually got it around about 4 times and then
And then you would
Bro.
pull back, so. go ahead and just make it
so
one.
it's on there.
All right. One thing about breaking,
Try to figure it
if you
out.
have a lot of trouble with it breaking on a whip finish,
First thing you gotta
Right.
you remember I was talking about thread control on the San Juan worm, where as you wrap like this,
90
you put twist into your thread.
degrees.
Yeah,
If your thread is really twisted up and you try to do a whip finish,
By the hook.
um,
No, right there. Yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
I got it in the wrong hand.
how do you untwist it?
Yeah.
As you start doing that, when you let go, you've got this thread is furled, it's furling.
Yeah, that's
And
pretty
so when you pull it back,
huge.
sometimes that can break.
Ah,
So if
I'm gonna hold it there wrap.
that becomes a problem for you, what you can do is try to get in the habit when you're finished trying your fly,
That's what you're doing.
okay, I'm toward the front of the fly now, eye length back.
Do it. When you're done,
I'm gonna take my thread
any direction works, yeah.
and give it a, if I was looking down on the hook,
I really
Yeah.
like it.
counterclockwise twist,
And go do it
like
again.
spin it. Let it spin a little bit. And so my thread's kind of flattened out.
It's because we.
Now when I do the finish,
So,
do I do counter, you say clockwise?
if you were looking down from above, it would be counterclockwise.
Okay,
you
So
know,
you're spinning it in the opposite direction as you're wrapping your thread.
counterclockwise.
It's kind of hard to explain, but just always remember, if you want to flatten your thread as you've been wrapping in the same direction every time, if you want to
Okay.
flatten it, you spin it in the opposite direction, which is counterclockwise. Then you do your whip finish.
All right,
Then it's flat thread and you don't have to worry about breaking it.
I wrote it.
It won't break and you can do a whip finish.
all right, so I have the,
You're okay. Give yourself, you're fine, Casper.
it just broke again.
I think your problem, if you take that bobbin that you're using,
Yeah, just like that.
take the spool out
Should be with this hand.
Yes.
Yeah,
and just take those arms and just bend them like this.
Rotate your hand like this,
It's real strong spring steel. Just bend them out like this
Here, right? And now you're gonna start wrapping it. Yes,
and then
yes.
put your spool back in.
Oh, hold on.
Hold it in place, there you go, you're starting to wrap it.
So what I did was I took the spool out, just
Okay,
bend
down.
those tips out like that.
I did, it didn't, I had to squish it back.
Right.
You go right
Now,
back.
now put your spool back in
So try her again.
Okay.
and rethread it.
Keep-
Okay.
You just cut that. And once
I don't know if you have a threader or
And then you're gonna rock
if
it, and then you're
if you
gonna.
put the tip, if you put the tip up into the bottom like that,
The slide's gonna be now not, you know.
and then
90,
suck through it, it'll
straight up.
pull it up through there.
You got it.
Yep. This is like,
So now your spool should move a lot more smoothly on your bobbin.
no matter.
It should
All right.
move really easily, right?
Well,
So now, sometimes it's kind of annoying. You have to keep re-spinning it. But
Straight
now,
up.
when you wrap it, you have to kind of hold it with your
Now, let
fingers
the side pivot
to keep
around.
it tight.
Okay.
You release a little bit, keep in mind.
And that's going to keep you from breaking your thread.
So you go like that, there you go.
Are you using 8/0 thread?
Yeah, now.
hold on,
2,
I'm using
4.
Now
Uni-thread,
rotate, yeah, okay, that's, yeah, go ahead, rotate down. There you
6
go.
0.
Six
Does it-
up.
Does it say how many denier or whatever? Roger's got a good point. You might have a
Okay.
burr. You might have a burr on the end of your bobbin. Does it fray? Like as you're wrapping your fly, does it get little
I hear
fray-
frustration.
fraying off?
Your wood finishing.
Oh, this wood.
Oh,
finish is
no,
rough.
this-
Yeah, this has got some rough edges on this wood finish, feel that?
This, I made it too
Doesn't hurt at
loose.
all.
The,
I'm
bobbin
just working with them.
came out.
Yeah, Bill's help.
I pulled the metal too far apart.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I have this older bobbin that has a burr in it, and I use it for real thick, really heavy thread. You can use it for wire, that kind of stuff. If you have a burr in the end, that what happens is if you're
Oh,
using,
God, you're not gonna,
let's say you're using a Kevlar thread,
he wants you to do a whip finish?
Yeah.
or here's a really common problem.
It's gonna flip.
Beginning tires, a lot of times they'll do this.
Yeah, I felt it flip.
You see what I'm doing with the
90, get this guy.
Watch this.
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
beginning tires? A lot of times they'll do a real short thread like this.
You
When
have
you
used
do
the,
that,
Yeah.
you can grab the point of the hook and scratch that ceramic right there at the tip,
You know, a lot of guys do it.
right? So as
Yeah.
you're wrapping it around, you can bump that and you can nick that ceramic and cause a burr. So then as you're wrapping your thread, you're actually like breaking. Thread is made up, a lot of these threads are made up of several microfibers, right?
Just lay it on top.
So
Just
when
lay
you can flatten it and actually,
I can put it like this.
let me,
That allows you to get your rotated. Go straight up.
you can take that thread and actually split it apart
Rotate back. There you go. Feel how rotated?
Right.
like
Yeah,
this, and you can see that it's made up of several little tiny fibers,
Grab the thread.
like silk.
And you want to leave like that much.
Right,
room, but
yeah.
So if you have a nick in your bobbin, you might be breaking those individual threads and causing your thread to weaken. So like right there, you can see it's real flattened out, real flossed out. I can make a smooth body with that. Sometimes you want that to be the case. But if you run that by the point of your hook, you're going to break some of it. and you're going to have a problem.
Did you get a long enough tail feather, John?
Yeah.
But take a long hook and just
Right here,
keep
be fine.
just in whip finishes like that.
We'll give him all the feather he needs.
Okay.
Take a long hook and just do whip finish after whip finish after whip finish.
Are you gonna tie some at home?
I don't have a visor.
Okay, yeah, I keep forgetting. I got some vices at some place.
We took 5 with us in the car, didn't we? The Cabela's one that I reworked.
Thank you, Roger. That was a good point.
Sorry.
I have to go get them. I gotta go over to storage anyhow.
I had that happen myself I was doing a
Thanks
um,
for,
demonstration for Al Beatty's
Fishing rigs, remember you mentioned that? in,
fly tying Fridays,
one of
and
the
I was
fishing-
doing a streamer fly, and I
You
was
talking-
wrapping a thick white thread, and I was doing it. You could watch all the little fibers breaking because of the nick in my bobbin tube.
yeah, no, we'll talk about that when we get done with the fly rod build.
Okay,
Okay.
That's gonna be another class afterwards. They're gonna, in fact, I'm thinking about turning that into a moneymaker.
Oh, you can fix the rods and.
Fix the rods and sell them.
Okay.
To raise money, donate them, then sell them. So I've got a ton of them in the garage and I got more of them over in the storage shed. We can do rod repair
Okay.
and that way you can take a rod home and do it at home and repair it and then we can sell it. Or donate it or give it away and or put it into an auction or something like that.
how do we do the final line if we can't get the whip thing?
Okay, here, let me show you. You do a half hitch.
Oh, way to go, Roger.
Huh?
I'm waiting about maybe a month before I go after the crappies, but I might try pike here in another, maybe this weekend.
Where do you start, where do you go for crappie, Prairie Creek?
For crappie here in Omaha area, just because I know the lakes, I go to
6X thread.
Walnut Creek and
It's
Prairie
not
Creek.
thread. You should be fine with that.
What part,
Now,
from shore, or do you
yes.
take a kayak? or something?
Sure.
I think what's happening is
Where
you're
do you,
fixing it on the point of the hook.
What area?
No, this
did
time I
you,
was using
so-
the, every time I was using it, it just
Um, I would say we're probably
see,
a month,
I try hard to like you.
kind of hard to tell with the weather, but we're probably a month and
I
a
didn't
half
see
away
what you
from
were
the
doing.
crappie spawn.
It
I
can
don't
be
know what to say.
finicky. I went to
But
the local
I would
lake
say toward the
and the
end
spot
of,
where I've normally been catching the crappie,
That man Mountain Mike in you.
is
that's
getting
what-
zero.
No, you
I
don't.
fished all the way around that lake. Came
Mike,
within,
we're talking over you just a second. Go
came
ahead.
within 100 yards of getting back to where I started from, and all of a sudden I found a spot where they were hitting just like crazy. So
nice.
the early part of the season, they move around a bit. So
Yeah.
good luck to everybody. See ya.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'd be down.
Take care, Roger.
Bye, guys.
Al left.
Yep, he had to
Yeah,
leave
he
early.
had the meeting in Oregon, didn't he?
Yep.
Uh,
Even- I would say
I'd like to go
probably,
to-
I would
Mike,
say
I'd like to
probably
go
mid,
to, sorry, go ahead.
late March to early April. Prairie Queen or Walnut Creek along the rocks.